U.S. interactions with other sovereign powers. It's no accident that the flag of the United Federation of Planets looks strikingly like the flag of the United Nations. But episodes are not enough. These questions take time to think through. 45 minutes is not enough. So longer narrative arcs began to develop in the stories of Deep Space Nine by situating a space station near the planet of Bajor, and here's where I come back to No God and Star Trek, which has survived enemy occupation and near genocide at the hands of the lizard-like Cardassians. So the Federation comes to administer the space station while guarding the Bajorans from the Cardassians. This is a long-term posting. This positioning allows for sustained examination of a people who were post-invasion, post-labor camp, post-sex slavery, post-native uprising and rebellion against the occupation. Should we call it rebellion? Should we call it terrorism? Star Trek asks that over and over and over again. So long narrative arcs let us study the conflicts that arise when overly godless Starfleet helps rebuild Bajor, a people who have survived intact only because of their cherished belief in the prophets, right, who guide every step of their way. Each group looks at the other with something approaching mild scorn. There's Deep Space Nine, hovering beautiful over the remarkably Earth-like planet of Bajor. Remarkably Earth-like. Each must come to understand the reality of each. And these things take time. You can't do this. You just can't do this in a 45-minute episode where the Enterprise just flies away and we'll see you next Thursday at 8 o'clock. And I just want to remind you, as of course, because the roots of this presentation are here in the roots of Star Trek, there are real Earth parallels here, where the U.S. has left troops behind in a number of countries to maintain the peace or to maintain a presence of some sort, right? We leave people. Voyager's impossible journey back to Earth from 70,000 light years away on a ship that was not so much of a melting pot as a crucible allows a sustained examination of relationship building among folks originally belonging to different groups. Whoops, that is the wrong. There's Voyager. There we go. Look at that ship. Isn't she beautiful? 70,000 light years away. With, can I just say, a woman in command. You knew they were going to make it home. But look at the diversity of this crew. So we have a Borg. We have someone representing American Indians. We have a black man. We have an Asian man. We have a holodeck character, a hologram character playing the Doctor, which I love. We have another sort of homeless alien that's been adopted. Here's one of the only white guys, right? He's a Starfleet guy. DeLand Torres is half Klingon and half human. And here's Captain Janeway right in the middle. That's pretty diverse, right? That's a lot of diversity. That would never have gone over in the 1960s. I just lost track. Politically opposite camps, genetically disparate bodies, completely incompatible ideologies. Half a Starfleet crew, half a crew made up of Starfleet rebels. The Voyager crew is the most racially diverse. They even have a Borg. She's a reclaimed Borg, right, to be sure, but one on her own journey, and each must learn to understand each, and the interplay between these guys was amazing. So these things take time, and in many ways I think Voyager is sort of a metaphor for the America that we see today, not quite to the extent that we would see it in more modern episodes of Star Trek, but not too bad, Voyager's particular situation added more questions than answers, inevitably that far from home with their imaginations, with only their imaginations in the holodeck. The humans exploit their seemingly inexhaustible technology and allow us to see the pursuit of escapism into virtual reality. Screen addiction, anyone? So that has its own pointed questions. To what extent should technology serve our purposes? At what point does the Doctor, that crazy emergency medical hologram, cease to be a program? Is it a violation of the inherent personhood of an intelligent, possibly sentient hologram to change its own programming, even if it'll be happier as a result? How do these things play out? What are the questions that we should be asking, and what are the answers that we could be finding? Is it an ethical violation if the isolated captain of a ship considers taking a hologram partner? If a Borg is separated from the collective, is it ethical to restore its humanity by essentially reprogramming it back to something that we consider human? I mean, Seven of Nine still has, even today in Star Trek Picard, she still has some of those metal implants in her head, but she's much more human than she was when they first found her. Is that a good idea? Do we know? But Star Trek always asks the questions, which I think is, again, one of the reasons that we keep on watching it. So these are deep questions, and we're only just now beginning to address in real life some of the less thorny of them. And I'm sure that we'll address more of them as our technology catches up to our imaginations, and as our ethics and our morals struggle to keep up. Just for those reasons, Trek remains relevant. But there's one reason, perhaps the reason, for Star Trek's enduring popularity. We can all find ourselves in it. Everyone, every single one of us can find our home somewhere in that universe. All of us have felt that archetypal pull of Spock's dividedness, right? Half human, half Vulcan, at home only in the stars. Can't go to Vulcan, can't be part of Earth. Where can he be? Only with people like himself. Each of us is made up of multitudes, seeking love and belonging in a world that seems to treasure hatred and division. All of us can understand what it means to be alien, to be different from those around us. If you were Black, Japanese, Russian, a Vulcan weirdo who played chess with computers he programmed himself, if you were a homeless android, or a Klingon needing a family, if you were disabled in any way, if you came to understand that you were more than your physical body's government-approved gender, all of us welcome at that big table. As a result, for some of us, see, this is how Seven looked like when they first rescued her. She's fine. She has a mission, she knows what she's doing. Here's what they turned her into. Certainly more physically attractive to human eyes of this century, right? Better, worse, certainly different. And Janeway made those decisions to take away what she had been, to make her what she was. Was she? And if you're watching Star Trek Picard, you'll know that we could consider her a transgender character. She's sort of be a metaphor for a transgender character. And the reason I say that specifically is that in one of the more recent episodes of Star Trek Picard, she's not allowed to go by the name Seven of Nine. She's referred to, the captain, the ship that she's on, prefers that she go by Annika Hansen, which is the word name that she was, the name she was born with. Calling her by a name she doesn't claim as her own, I'm not sure about that, right? There's something to know about that. So for some of us, Star Trek has been the background of our lives. Some of us don't always talk about our experiences because of the reactions, so let me tell you a story. On joining Stetson University, I went to in 1999. 1999, now this was a long time ago, and I've worked very hard to change the culture of Stetson since then. So I went to a human resources meeting where they could explain to us about benefits and vacation time and blah, blah, blah. And I was trying to make friends. So I told one of the other new hires that year about Star-Based Dental. Does this sound familiar to anyone? You heard about this? Yes, I see a nodding head. Star-Based Dental. Star-Based Dental was the dental office in Orlando, completely decked out in Star Trek. All the dental assistants, including the dentist, were in Starfleet uniform. It was a requirement to work in that office. Okay, yes, I can see the reactions. Okay, all right. So this is the reaction I got. Was like, how good a dentist could he possibly be? And I thought, yeah, right. It's like, okay, I'm not talking about this right now. I have to find a better way to make friends. So the geeks may have inherited the earth, but we still get crap for it sometimes. And I'm sure that at least some of the students in every one of my Trek classes, and I've taught a version of a Star Trek course over and over for about 10 years now at various levels at the university. So I'm sure that at least some of the students in those classes have expected me to come into class in costume, maybe wearing ears. You know, I never have, but I'm pretty sure they still hope. Maybe I will one of these days. For some of us, though, Star Trek is not just a hobby or a fandom. Do I have a slide for this? No, I don't think so. Yes, I do. Okay, January 19th, 1967, I was about to turn 4, and it was 7:45 p.m., and I was just Dad, you should be correcting. This is my father. I wasn't just about to turn 4, I'm sorry, I was just about to turn 3. I was playing in the living room of my family home in Reading, Connecticut. I had my face pressed as close to the TV as my mother would allow. How am I so precise? How do I know what time it was, what day it was, what year it was? How do I know these details? Because that is the very earliest memory of my life. And so I tracked it down. Watching Captain Kirk battle the Gorn Commander in the episode Arena. Always one of our go-to episodes when I want some fun. And that episode aired for that first time, January 19th, 1967. And this battle happens at 7:45. You assume that it started at 7. Set a course for my life that I've happily walked. And I learned about IDIC, yes. Infinite diversity and infinite combinations, absolutely. I knew about that before I learned about Dick and Jane and Spock, right? I never read Goodnight Moon, but in this generation, that would be my reference, right? At that point, I was learning how to read by, Dick and Jane and Spock. So I knew about infinite diversity and infinite combinations long before anything else. And Star Trek gave me a link to Stetson University before I knew it existed, because the voice of that legendary Gorn commander was none other than You may recognize him as Lurch from the Addams Family. This is Ted Cassidy. He played basketball for Stetson in I can't even remember when. 6'7", right? And I had no idea now that the voice, not the guy in the costume, but the voice of the Gorn, all that hissing, right? No vocalizations, except until he gets to the translator, right? Surrender, I will be merciful. Right? That's Ted Cassidy. Surprise. Legendary hatter. So even though it's only mentioned once, I want to come back to IDIC for just a moment. The most important philosophy of all is IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. And this is one of the things that I really think infected American culture with the best possible kind of virus, which is a celebration of difference. It's a Vulcan belief, born in Gene's head, mediating human experience. The idea is simple, right? So it's reverence. Reverence not just a specific way, but always. Revel in the beauty of difference. Seek it out, not to destroy it, not to change it, not even to understand it, and certainly not to merely accept it, not to merely tolerate it. The bedrock of Star Trek is its exploration, not of the final frontier, but of the limits of the human experience. What can we do when we encounter them, right, or it? What we do and why and how, of course, inevitably triggers consequences. Division, we tend to think, is inherent, right? It's part of being human. But it's only when we consider ourselves to be them, or to be it, that we can become a little bit wholer in ourselves. When we start with the assumption that the others are us, and that we are them, when we actively take down walls and bridges that divide us and separate us, when we treat others as we truly wish to be treated, right? The arrow's heart in another is the arrow in our own. That's when we can start to make some progress. Trek doesn't talk much about IDIC these days, being more concerned with its consequences, which can be tragic. But the underlying principles are still really clear. And this is why I think Star Trek really matters. This is why we continue to want more. The American spirit of diversity and inclusion, which I firmly believe is still here, even though a very loud minority would have us believe otherwise, and I firmly believe that we are still going strong. So this is how we got here. 55 years later, new visions continually on the way. 5 new series running all concurrently. That's astonishing to me. That's an enormous brain trust driven by people who love the vision and who want to see it continue. And it's because Star Trek teaches us that the impossible is doable. Star Trek teaches us that we must not merely accept that others believe or act differently. Tolerance of difference and diversity is not enough. Trek tells us that only when we actively seek difference, cherish it, celebrate it, can we move past division. Seeking out new life on that new final frontier is literally seeking our new lives. It may be where no one has gone before, but the glory and the hope and the power of Trek is that we are all welcome on that final frontier. It's much more than a message of unity, it's a message of harmony. And I think we certainly still need that today. Thank you. And I have to say, I have this. I own this. This little piece of jewelry that I found today. Yes, you do! Let me see. Yes, you do. Excellent. Thank you for wearing that. She has an earring. I have a pendant. And I bought it at a Star Trek convention. And I have to tell you, so badly made. So I'll tell you just a little quick story about how that IDIC symbol came to be. I mean, you can see the blue, it's made out of really cheap. I barely wear it ever because it's just badly made. I bought it for what felt like a fortune in 1977, I think. That was the year of one of my first conventions, and it was a joint that was the year that Star Wars released, and so the first convention I went to was mostly Star Wars with a tiny little corner of Star Trek. George Takei was there. It was lovely, lovely, lovely. No 50,000 person lines, stretching out the door. There were maybe 3 people in this little bookstore called Merlin's. No, wait, Gandalf's Den. That's what it was called, Gandalf's Den. And so I saw this. I had $10 to spend. I spent it on it. One of the best purchases I could possibly have made, and it still hangs over my desk in my office at Stetson. But I'm grateful to have it because they're really hard to find. They're really hard to find. So the other story, and it doesn't make Gene look very good, is that he came up with this idea just to make a buck. Yeah. So that he could sell the jewelry. capitalism, right? Capitalism, which fortunately he got rid of in Star Trek. There's no money in Star Trek. No money, no God. What do we believe in? What do we believe in? Anyway, so that's my contribution of the story. So I would love it. I saw so many heads nodding and saying, oh yes, people taking pictures of various screens. Let us talk. We're all Star Trek family here. Did any of this, was this new? Did you find anything new in this? Kind of, sort of? Oh, maybe not so much. Oh, a couple pieces of trivia, maybe? Some of the pieces of trivia. Discussion? Yes, sir.
Makes me long for the days when I was in the alpha problem.
One more time, please.
It made, let's see, makes me long for the days when I was living in the alpha quadrant.
Yes. Living for the days when we used to live in the Alpha Quadrant. Yes.
The alpha
Yes.
quadrant. Yeah.
Way out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a great, I'm sure you've seen this, the enormous poster of the Milky Way with one tiny little dot and an arrow that says, you are here. And you can't even see the planet it's pointing to. This is, we are a microscopic dot. Yep. Yeah. What else? Comments?
For everything that Gene Roddenberry did, which he was amazing in everything in Star Trek, there
Yes.
are several stories about him not necessarily being a very nice guy, I guess. I guess he
Which
was,
one, Gene?
Gene, yes.
Yes.
He wasn't necessarily a very nice guy on the side, so.
That's true.
There's two sides to that story, I would say, but he was amazing, and all the credit goes to him to
Mhm.
create this stuff.
Yeah.
But his son's involved in everything now that's coming out, so
Yep.
that's something that I appreciate. And
That makes a big difference.
and his son, they had a rocky relationship, but I'm happy that they're together now.
Yes. Yes.
Together as far as in Star Trek.
And
whatnot.
structure and overall vision, I mean, it is a flawed human being. We are all flawed human beings. But Gene had a vision, and even if he didn't always live up to those ethics, he had imagined them, right? And let's not forget that we wouldn't have the mother of Star Trek without Gene Roddenberry, right?
Mhm.
Angel Barrett Roddenberry, who's the voice of the computer. She was Nurse Chapel. She was Loxana Troy. She made guest appearances in everything but Voyager, I think. She may have made a hologram appearance in Voyager. But without the two of them, the mother and father of Star Trek, I don't think that we would have anything like this right now. Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware of this, that, how Leonard Nimoy had to fight for Nichelle Nichols, to be compensated appropriately.
Yes, that's right.
And I like that idea, the story behind that. Here he is standing up that, she's not being treated fairly or correctly, which is totally against Star Trek.
That's right. And he would know what that meant, because as a
Mhm.
practicing Jew, he was also being discriminated against. In fact, that's where this hand symbol comes
Yeah.
from, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the, I wouldn't call it a remnant, but it's an artifact of the
Yeah,
faith.
it's what they use to pray.
Mhm.
The Orthodox Jew, they put their hands up like this, to say part of their prayers. And these are the ones who really deeply, practice it. Also, like I said, very encouraging is to see, more African Americans in these series.
Oh, yes.
And because, like you said, with Black Lives Matters and everything, there are still people out there that still feels like we're being discriminated, still that way. And that seeing this, it's helpful for a lot, because now we are all also going out to space. We're all being a part of it. And I recently learned that there were several African American women that did the mathematical calculations for some of the rocket launches and shuttle launches with the fuel and everything. So I thought, wow, okay.
With brain power, right? Not computers. They were the computers.
They were.
That's why we have the name computer for the box that sits on the desk. They were the ones doing the computations. Those women were referred to as the computers. And we might look at it now from our perspective and say, oh, that's dehumanizing them. It's like, no. They actually set the stage for that. They set the stage for that. And the film, I'm trying to think what the name of the film
Hidden
is.
Figures.
Thank you, Hidden Figures. I knew it was Hidden something. Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, please.
I know, but how sad that you never heard that until you watched the movie, ever.
Well, I can also say, in terms of looking at America's, and certainly Star Trek's trying to recall that, there are a number of episodes in Deep Space Nine where Ben Sisko, played by Avery Brooks, makes the point, right? There are 3 episodes overtly referring to the horrific treatment that African Americans were getting in the United States. Hotboxing, for example, where possibly an enslaved black man, but typically somebody who had committed some pretty bad horrors was left in a concrete box in the sun, and that was like locked in, sealed in. So that's one idea. When Avery Brooks was starring in the episode that he helped direct, where they recreate themselves back in 20th century Europe, where they're running a publishing agency, and he plays the role of Benny Russell, who is an aspiring writer and cannot get his scripts or his stories read because he's a black man, and he can't possibly write anything that would be worthy of reading. And then the other thing I want to point out about Avery Brooks, who was absolutely a stalwart guy, made sure that everything in Sisko's quarters reflected African culture. Not every kind of African culture, but the culture that he belonged to. The colors, the artwork, the costuming, the things he would wear off duty, all of those things were drawn with African flavors on his say-so. So that's there are roots here. Oh, sorry, did not mean that to be a reference. But there are definitely deep threads that connect all of this.
One of the continuity along the deep threads, and I think, I like that there was the Black Vulcan on Voyager.
Yes.
Okay, Worf is is a black man played by a black man. So showing that there is diversity within individual species that is along the same
Right.
lines as what humans have, was trying to draw us all together instead of break us apart.
Yes. And do you remember the uproar in the popular media when it became clear that Worf was going to be a black man and not just a Klingon, but a Klingon played by a black man? Everybody's like, what? No, that can't happen. Same thing happened with Tuvok on Voyager. Vulcan.
I could ignore all that crap.
Oh yeah. But it's impossible for me to ignore it entirely because that tells me even more about how much more work we need to do. There should never have been. Yeah. Although we still haven't seen a redheaded Vulcan. Not yet. Not yet. I think that'll happen sooner or later.
You're on a desert island. You have all the episodes of every single series.
No, I know what you're gonna ask.
You can leave the island, but you have to pick 3 episodes. What would you pick?
It's better than one
So
episode.
hard,
Yeah, okay, so that's television, that narrows it down.
Well, episodes or movies?
Episode.
Episodes, this is what makes it difficult, right? There's literally over 800
You're talking
episodes I can choose from. Well, Arena would be one of them, with the Gorn Commander, because that's where my heart first fell in love with Captain Kirk, right? And I will admit that my heart belongs to Kirk, but my head belongs to Picard and to Sisko. I still think that Deep Space Nine was overall really the best of the series, but my heart belongs in 8 different directions, so it's very hard for me to do that. Okay, so Arena would be one. I think In the Pale Moonlight from Deep Space Nine would be another one. Remind me to watch that again. I need to watch that. The third one. Let's see. I've got action. I've got drama. I need comedy. Take Me Out to the Holodeck from Deep Space Nine. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. How many Deep Space Nine fans in here? Okay then. Oh, let's just do a quick poll here. So if you had to identify, are you an original series person?
Yeah, that's.
Okay. Next Generation people? Okay. Voyager people?
All the above.
All of it,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. And what about the new series? Is anybody watching? You're just going, yeah, I watched them all. I watched them all. It's taken me a while to get into Lower Decks because they're half-hour animated series,
Yeah.
but they are
You
hilarious.
just gotta watch more.
Yeah, but that's the truth, right? Yeah, that's relaxing TV viewing is 3 or 4 episodes of Lower Decks. If you haven't seen Lower Decks, I strongly recommend it, because one of the only things that's wrong with all of the TV series and the films, they only show you the command crew. So what happens in the lower decks is all of the people doing the, excuse me, the scut work, cleaning up after messy aliens and, finding animals for people to eat and, going down into second contact missions and, it's just the lower decks is hilariously fine. Moves really fast though, so I have to have the captions on because I can't keep up because the voices move too fast. Anybody watching Discovery? Only a few, right? And that's ending now, so my heart is sad about that. Yeah.
Prodigy, I think, has been very good.
I have
Even
not
for
yet.
kids.
I haven't
Prodigy's
fully
been
indulged in
excellent.
that yet. That's Kate Mulgrews' series,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's excellent.
Yep, I have heard wonderful things about it.
Very,
Wonderful
very
things about
good.
it. Strange New Worlds, anyone?
Oh,
Oh,
fantastic.
yes, so much fun, right? I like seeing this new take on Spock. I like knowing that Spock actually had a history. I mean, we all know that, but it's nice to see it sort of developing out. And I'm glad to know that Seabright isn't quite as nasty as she seems in the original series. Well,
I think
she
that
kinda is, but-
that show's gonna go for a while,
Yeah,
personally,
yeah. There's a lot of
especially
there.
since Discovery's ending.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me about Prodigy. I do need to start watching that.
What do you think's gonna happen with Picard when they're saying that that's the end of the next generation?
I think that's what they're saying. Kind of hoping not. But we're only in episode 3 of Picard. We've got 7 left to go. I can't imagine what's going to happen next because they've covered so much territory in these first 3 episodes. But it's wonderful to have Jonathan Frakes behind the camera again.
Love John.
It's wonderful to see Michael Dorn back. Oh, do you know that he's 70 now and he's still doing most?
No.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So he comes back as Worf, who's a pacifist all of a sudden, and looking pretty good. I'll just say, looking really good with the eyebrows and the the silver in his beard. And he's decided that he's a pacifist and that the way of the warrior is limited. And yet, in the first time you really see him, right, he's slicing somebody's head off with a sword, just like, that's, yeah, so. Oh, and it was a, and that's another element that I didn't have time to talk about, but there is some sort of internal racism inside Star Trek. It's not an accident that the Ferengi, who are greedy, small, always about the money, always about the money, always about the money, have enormous ears, big noses. There's a Jewish stereotype there that's a little ugly. I mean, the characters of the Ferengi transcend that, right, overall, but let's not slow it.
If
That wasn't an accident.
If you've ever spoken to Armin Shimmerman, he goes on about
Yep.
the fact that there's a definite difference between aliens and humans.
Oh, yes, very much so, very
And
much
how
so.
they're treated
Yep.
on set and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, just the way that the aliens and the humans are made up, right? So, the closer the alien looks to human, the more you're meant to read them as Americans, right? So the Bajorans only have just a tiny little nose piece, right? And the Trill only have spots, really. But, people like Nagilum and Next Generation, who are, so far beyond our conception of human that we can't recognize it as human, when we see those kinds of aliens, we're meant to read them as far away from American life as possible. So that's why the Jem'Hadar, the Cardassians, all of those sort of snaily, reptilian-looking folks, we are meant to see that as not human, therefore not American, therefore problem, right? Or at least problematic, right? And the Dominion, the shapeshifters, you have no idea who they are. That's a little scary. The Dominion terrify me, and the Jem'Hadar terrify me. So, because they're wearing teeth on their faces. It's a little distressing. But yeah, that's something unfortunate. Well, I think my time is up, and thank you for rapt attention and interest and questions. I'm so glad you all came. Thank you so much. Thank you.